We now move on to our next book launch, the release of Dev, Battle of the Ten Kings by Mr. Rishabh Dubey, known by his pen name Critias. Rishabh is a best selling author and musician from Lucknow, known for titles like Crickos The Vertical Horizon, Dev, The Mango Man, and The Critias Verses, alongside his music, including the album Embrace the Chaos. Please welcome Mr. Rishabh Dubey on stage with a round of applause.
And unlike every time when I tend to speak spontaneously, I have a written speech today. Well, a writer has written so. Yeah, exactly. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for that response. It is wonderful to be here at Solstice 2026, especially for an edition that is themed mythology and Indian history, right? Because today I am launching a book which is very close to my heart, and the story is very close to the Indian diaspora, Indian audiences as well. It is based on the Mahabharata. It's called as Dev, but it's a science fiction book. I'll come to that later. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Rishabh Dubey. I'm known as Critias. Mostly whoever knows me as an author knows me as Critias, which is also printed on my t-shirt today, which is a good way to market yourself, but I'm not showing my t-shirt right now. I'll show it later. I'll come to that again. I'm an author, a musician, and someone who has always been fascinated by science fiction, mythology, history, and the strange places where all of them begin to overlap. Today, I get to launch two books. The second book is called as SciBle. It is science fiction Bible, very weird but very deep meaning to that name. I'll come to that as well. I want to begin with something that Douglas Adams, if you know who he is, he once wrote. He said the impossible often has a kind of integrity to it, which merely the improbable lacks. I love that line because mythology and science fiction both ask us to spend some time with the impossible. Thousands of years ago, we imagined extraordinary beings, celestial weapons, journeys across worlds, and realities beyond ordinary human experience. Today, we talk about artificial intelligence, black holes, genetic engineering, and interplanetary travel. The vocabulary has slightly changed, but our instinct to imagine beyond the limits of the world in front of us has not. And that is really where Dev began for me. The first Dev, this volume 2, the first Dev was my science fiction version of the Holy Ramayana. There's a movie coming out very soon. I hope everybody tunes into that. I know there are a lot of complaints regarding the VFX or I don't know what, but I'm just really glad that something of that scale is coming out and being imagined in India. And I really love, I'll be the first one to watch it in the theaters. And I expect everyone to, being the unpaid, unsolicited marketer of that movie. But yes, I love the Ramayana. I love the concept of the Ramayana, the story of the Holy Ramayana. At the center of my book, which is DEV, Department of Extra Dimensional Vectors, as the acronym stands for, is Dr. Matang Leeladhar Swami, a fictional character, of course, a man of science who finds himself confronting a world he has always understood through mythology. What fascinated me was not simply taking the Ramayana and putting technology around it. I wanted to ask what happens when someone trained to question everything encounters something in his science cannot immediately explain. Basically, the things that science has not explained yet, he encounters them through mythology or through his vivid experiences. Does he now still call it mythology as a word means? Or does he call it history, faith, or evidence? Or simply something beyond the limits of what he currently understands and perceives? Today, with Dev, Battle of the Ten Kings, that name holds a lot of meaning in Indian mythology. If any one of you has read the Rig Veda, it took me 2 years to read it. There is a very, very interesting, not just an anecdote, actually, a lot of chapters regarding the Battle of the Ten Kings, which happened in ancient India in the Rig Vedic period. It's not exactly the Mahabharata, but actually correlates a lot to the Mahabharata. So, the Battle of the Ten Kings is a journey. It's a journey that moves into the world of the Mahabharata from our current world, from Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, which I have written about in the book. The Mahabharata fascinates me because it does not make morality easy. Great people have terrible flaws. Families stand against families, duty clashes with loyalty, ambition clashes with morality, and sometimes people on opposite sides both believe dharma is with them. That makes it an incredible world for science fiction too, because good science fiction rarely gives us easy answers either. And Dr. Matang, or Dr. Matley, as I've written his name as, his journey continues beyond this book, the first book, that is. The first as well as the second book. I'm planning a third book. It is called The Dawn of Kali, as shall happen in the Kali Yuga. It is going to be a futuristic story, nothing from mythology except for the character references that we had. And it's going to be a completely new and fresh story. It will come out next year, again with Ukiyoto, if I'm blessed. So the larger journey moves from the Ramayana through the Mahabharata and eventually towards the dawn of Kali. Somewhere while writing these stories, I started asking a much larger question. Why does science fiction matter so much, especially to me or to the entire world holistically? We often reduce it to aliens, spaceships, robots, and time travel. And I've, at this platform, very flat platform, 2 years ago, I've spoken about how science fiction, how the word science fiction were developed, how they were invented. I've talked about Carol Capek, about Rossum's Universal Robots, etc. But today, I love all of that. But today, I'm going to talk about why science fiction does much more important things than you can imagine. It allows us to encounter the future before the future actually arrives. Before a technology becomes real, somebody can imagine what it might do to us. Just like Sir Isaac Asimov did that with the 3 laws of robotics. Before even robots were real, he imagined what laws should be in place to prevent an artificial intelligence from ruling over human race. Before a technology, you know, gives scientists possibilities, policymakers warnings, philosophers problems, and the rest of us a place to ask extraordinary powerful questions, science fiction does that as a prelude to technology. What if is the question. That fascination became SciBle, the science fiction Bible. It is not just a novel, it is my attempt to study science fiction itself. It's a thesis of 500 science fiction researches and books, researches and or books, where a technology was invented as a direct or indirect impact of an existing science fiction work or imagination or even a mythology work. How imagination influences innovation, technology, culture, ethics, policy, everything has been encapsulated in this book, and how ideas that sound impossible can sometimes become ordinary parts of human life. And while working on SciBle, one thought kept coming back to me. Humanity rarely builds the future without imagining some version of it first. That is where mythology and science fiction connect for me. Our ancestors looked at the unknown and imagined beyond the limits of their age. We do exactly the same thing today. We simply use different words. Dave takes some of our oldest stories and asks what happens when they meet science. SciBle asks what happens when imagination itself begins shaping science and the future. And perhaps that is why I love science fiction so much. I saw a couple of awards given for science fiction and fantasy today. Congratulations to the young people who are pursuing and writing and imagining as well as reading science fiction. Uh, Science fiction refuses to accept that the world as it exists today is the only world that can exist. It allows us to imagine better futures, warns us about the terrible ones, the dystopian ones. Imagine a utopia and pursue it, move towards it. And every once in a while, it gives somebody an idea that can actually become real. Science fiction has asked some fairly enormous questions about humanity, existence, the future, and of course, life, universe, and everything. And as Douglas Adams famously told, that there was an answer to life, universe, and everything, and that is on the back of my t-shirt today. It's called the number 42. So anyone who has read Douglas Adams or has dove deep into science fiction and the science fiction works knows what this number means. And with this, I'll just say, may the force be with you all, and Godspeed to everyone, and to the end of the world, science fiction always. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. You can meanwhile grab my copies from outside whenever you want. So I'll sign them for you gladly, and the price is negotiable. Thank you so much.